and I said what I meant. Come on with me. An elephant's faithful 100%. That is one of the, what I really mean is I stole from Jim Stenson in Opus Dei Numerary, who was the director of the Northridge Prep School in Chicago. And it's beautiful in its simplicity, and dare I say, in its integrity, because it fits so nicely together. So, courtesy of Mr. Stenson, I think of integrity as this triangle. And on each corner of the triangle, word, intent, and deed. In geometry, a lot of you had geometry. A triangle is the most stable figure. It doesn't shift under pressure. That's why we see it so much in architecture. That's why we see things like three-legged camp stools. It maintains its integrity under stress. So I like that. It really fits together nicely. So let's imagine this triangle is how you behave. If you're a person of integrity, then you need to keep all three sides of the triangle whole, unbroken. Another way to say it is you need to align your word, intent, and deed. So let's look at those. Word and intent. What's it called when you don't say what you mean? A lie? Maybe you soften it up a little, a deception, right? Do people of integrity lie? No, that's an easy one. How about word and deed? How do you describe a person who does not do what they say they're going to do? Yeah, we like that expression. A lot of us have heard the expression, he's a man of his word, right? Are people of integrity people who don't keep their word? No, that's pretty easy and obvious one. The hard one's the bottom. Intent and deed. To keep that side of the triangle whole, you have to do what you intend to do. You have to finish what you start. If you set a goal, you have to do everything possible to achieve the goal, even if it starts to get miserable. If you intend to keep a bargain, you keep the bargain, even if it turns out to be a bad bargain. So it means lots of things. First of all, it means you never quit. People of integrity don't quit. It's probably why some of your parents, you probably wanted to quit sports, and your parents probably told you, well, you don't have to play it next year, but you're going to finish this season. That's why, right? Because they want you to learn to be a person of integrity. I make part of my living selling very large national accounts, and I make another part of my living as a venture capital and private equity investor. So you could say that I make my living, a big part of my living, making deals. I've had lots of opportunity to see this triangle broken, and particularly the bottom part of the triangle broken. But I've noticed in life that if everybody accepts that integrity is important. None of you doubt that for a second. I have not convinced you of that. But I've noticed that if you call someone's integrity into question, they don't respond very well. So I've got my own little code word for it. So if you ever hear me using the phrase retrading the deal, if you ever hear me say that about someone or to you, then you know, that's my little secret, don't tell anybody else. You know what I'm actually doing is calling into a question your integrity, because when I'm dealing with human beings, including high school swimmers, this is in my head. I want you to look, you swimmers, look around the room. We recognize 47 people, 47 parents. These are people of integrity. They didn't lie. None of us lied, right? We told you the truth about our situation, including how hard it was going to be to have a season. And they're people of integrity, not just because they kept their word. Because we didn't tell you that we were definitely going to have a season. We told you we could get shut down any moment. We were determined to do it. But this group of people, we all did what we intended to do. We were determined to have a swimming season. And the more harder it got, the more determined we got, because we had to keep this triangle whole. Think about the people. When we couldn't use the locker rooms, family stepped up. When we couldn't have spectators, Mr. Fifield, Mr. Dealey stepped up. When we had to practice at both ends of the pool, somehow we had 10 coaches. Even the snow was conspiring against us at DAC champs. We were not going to be broken. So thanks to so many people in this room, we did what we intended to do. In the words of another great philosopher from a galaxy far, far away, there is no try, just do. So now clearly, Yoda's admonition is easier said than done. After watching so many people in this room strive to live up to this seemingly impossible Jedi code, it got me thinking. I know there were a few school administrators and even coaches who were genuinely fearful of this COVID thing. But I'll bet there were a lot more who were more fearful just thinking about all it was going to take to pull off a sports season this year. Why do some people look at obstacles first and other people look at opportunities first? I don't think anyone in this room would disagree that integrity, even by this definition, is an important value for all of us. So why is it that so many people find it so easy to rationalize quitting? Why do they find it so easy to rationalize not finishing something they do? Why do so many people find it so easy to become a victim and rationalize their own lack of integrity? When we break this integrity triangle, why do so many of us rationalize it away as something other than integrity? Well, for the answer, I'm going to turn to a very unusual place. Russian literature. Now, I'll never admit this in public, but I'm kind of a closet fan of Russian literature. Yes, it's kind of dark, very dark, and yes, it makes me very happy that I live in this country. But the deeper meaning of Russian literature, so much Russian literature, really resonates with me. Most historians and most of us, we act as if the biggest impacts on our lives, and the biggest impacts on history for that matter, are these dramatic events, these irresistible social forces. Well, Leo Tolstoy, who wrote War and Peace and Anna Karenina, did not believe that. He argued that what really shapes our individual and social lives, or even what really shapes great events, are the countless little events that by themselves go unnoticed. He called them prosaic events. Prosaic events. I doubt he used the word prosaic because he spoke Russian, but what does prosaic mean? It's a good 50-cent SAT word. Anyone know what prosaic means? Ordinary, yeah. It means ordinary, commonplace, unromantic. So Leo Tolstoy believed that great things in the world, great movements, dramatic events, actually were caused by quite ordinary things that we don't even notice. My favorite novel, Russian novel, is Crime and Punishment. Dostoevsky wrote it in 12 magazine installments in 1866. In the first part of the book, Raskolnikov commits this heinous murder of this old pawnbroker. An unscrupulous pawnbroker, heinous murder. The next 5 parts and the epilogue are all about the punishment. Although the book's a lot more about the punishment, Tolstoy chose to focus on the crime. To Tolstoy, Raskolnikov didn't kill the old woman because of some grand theory he came up with. He tried to come up with a bunch of grand theories and never came to some conclusion. To Raskolnikov, the crime was made possible, and this is Tolstoy, when he was lying on the sofa in his room, deliberating not about the old woman, nor even as to whether it is or is not permissible at the will of one man to wipe from the face of the earth another, but whether he should live in Petersburg or not, whether he ought to accept money from his mother or not, or on other questions that weren't even related to the old woman. The question, he decided, when he was doing nothing, when only his consciousness was active. And in that consciousness, tiny, tiny alterations were taking place. Tiny, tiny alterations, but on them depend the most immense consequences. As Tolstoy so eloquently concluded, boundless results of unimaginable importance may follow from minute alterations occurring in the domain of the consciousness. Now, believe it or not, I think about such things when I'm coaching swimming. Because you've heard me say swimming ain't about swimming. I can tell you ad nauseum, work hard. Never quit. Don't play the victim. Find joy in sacrifice. Or I can put you in positions where you are subject to a constant stream of small experiences in your life that permanently alter the way you think in some imperceptible way. Like when you got up early and didn't want to. Or when you worked hard in practice and after practice, you felt pretty good about yourself. Or when you swam a PR and you felt that sense of joy that comes from some sense of satisfaction. Or when you did something you didn't think you could do. Then you start to understand how God's world works. With enough of these tiny alterations, I won't need to tell you to do what you always intend to do. Because it'll become somewhere deep inside. If you had enough of these imperceptible experiences, you will have altered what Gary Saul Morson, he's a Russian literature professor at Northwestern University, calls the climate of your mind. You will do what you intend to do, no matter how hard it is, because it makes you feel badly not to do it, because your conscience will require it. I think of swimming at Seton like climate change for your mind. I always chuckle inside when I hear kids say, I'm not a morning person. Or I really chuckle inside when I hear parents say, my kid is not a morning person. Who's a morning person? I mean, besides Mr. Mulhern, I don't know any morning people that are under 60 years old. And he's not even under 60, I don't think. I'll tell you a little secret. I regularly have parents every year tell me how they're fighting their kids to join swimming. You know what I do? I just assume it's going to happen. I don't fight, I just expect. It's not optional. We don't discuss it. Is it optional to graduate from high school? In my house, is it optional to be an Eagle Scout? It's just, that's the way the world works. We're going to swim. When I encounter parents that are concerned, oh, you really need to take my son or daughter out of the 500 or the 100 free, I don't think they can do it. And what do I usually say? This is a little secret too, so don't pass this on to the next group of parents. I say, let me handle it. And you know what I do? Nothing. I might have an assistant coach. Assistant coaches go give them some words of encouragement. But I make sure they know very clearly that I expect this to happen. And why can I do that? First of all, I wouldn't put them in it if I wasn't 100% sure they could do it. I know they can do it, even if they don't. And also because I see this as an opportunity for this kid. I am trying to change the climate of their mind. I'm trying to make each little event in swimming another prosaic experience in their lives. When we do set out to do something, we're going to do it. Period. When we do the CF Swimathon, 200 lengths of the pool. 3/4 of the way across Chesapeake Bay. How many of you recall having a discussion with me about whether or not that can be done? I guarantee you that very few of you, if any, had a discussion. We talked about how it can be done. We talked about getting long, we talked about all the stroke technique, but never once was there anything but an assumption that you can do it. And you know what? Christina Witter did it. A bunch of beginning swimmers did it. Kyle DeRay did it. Lauren Curley did it last year. She never swum before in her life. Maddie Given did it. She has cystic fibrosis. And you know what? When that happened, the climate of their mind was changed. Now, I've experienced that myself. Somehow, this happened to me as a young man. And I don't know, I doubt my parents concluded that, they needed to listen to Leo Tolstoy's advice, but somehow intuitively they knew. And it's not surprising that I don't remember, right? Because it happened with a series of ordinary prosaic events. So let's go back to Russian literature. Why I believe Russian literature and Crime and Punishment was not always my favorite. In fact, when I was in high school, I didn't even read the book. It was assigned to me by Joan Lawson. Joan baby. We used to call her when she wasn't around. Mrs. Lawson signed it in AP English, and somehow that woman had either an amazing intuition or a wonderful sense for retribution, because she decided that we were going to put on a trial in class of Raskolnikov, and Jim Keohr was going to play Raskolnikov. So I survived the assignment. Fortunately, I had a bunch of Ivy League-bound friends that were good to interview at lunch. Even got an A on it. But like the book, I was my own worst punishment. 35 years after the assignment, I read the book. I decided that like Raskolnikov, I decided that I had suffered for my crime long enough. How ironic that I followed the same path as Raskolnikov, and I was my own punishment. And like Raskolnikov, I felt the need to get caught. I felt the need so much that I tracked this woman down. She's like 80-something years old. She lives in Roanoke, Virginia. I got on the phone, and I was talking to her husband, and her husband, took all my sales ability to get him to give her the phone, because he did not believe that a high school student in her class in 1980 was calling her. And we had a big discussion about Russian literature, and I had a very happy woman on my hands. And this woman had a very happy boy on her hands. And by the way, she didn't realize I hadn't read the book. But I was free. Integrity and the perseverance it requires are ingrained in each of us through the natural revelation we experience in its daily practice. Once you experience the truth enough times, your consciousness adopts it without even knowing it. It's become a habit you cannot break. Swimmers, look around the room. 47 volunteers we honored. They have integrity, as I've defined it here. Together, we decided we were going to have a season, and we did it. There is no do. There is no try. Just do. And in the climate of my mind right now, it feels like a perfect spring. Thank you.